It's so great to be here, really an honor to be here. Thanks so much to all of you. Thanks to CL. Thanks to Representative Camacho for his very gracious introduction. I want to thank my friend Hedel Doshi, who it was great. It was wonderful today. Let me just tell you, there's so much nastiness in our politics, but there's also moments of real grace and warmth, especially on this campaign. And I was very fortunate today when I had a conflict come up to be able to text Hedel and ask Hedel whether she could go first so I could go second and take care of some family stuff. So I appreciate that so much. My name is David Seligman. I'm a workers' rights, consumer rights, and civil rights lawyer. I have not lived my life to run for office. I certainly haven't lived my life to collect checks that very often like to invest in politics in Colorado. I'm the father of 3 little girls, and my job is to sue the biggest corporations in the world on behalf of working people. I'm running for office because I am freaked out and fed up with a lot of the same things that you all are freaked out and fed up by. A 2-tiered legal system where those with wealth and power play by a completely different set of rules than the rest of us. For a very long time, corporations and billionaires have been hijacking our politics, boiling our oceans, ripping off customers and workers, and they've been getting away with it. And right now, that 2-tiered legal system has led us to a crisis point, a crisis of corruption and of corporate abuse. And the face of that crisis is Donald Trump. This week, it appears that Renee Good was murdered by an ICE agent, and it's not clear that anyone is going to be held accountable for that. Minneapolis is under siege. Minneapolis is under siege right now by Donald Trump and Stephen Miller's army. Meanwhile, he's handed over the keys to our government to the oligarchs. The oligarchs standing behind him at his inauguration. The good news is that we can fight back. The good news is that we have the tools to fight back. In particular, we have an especially important tool in the Attorney General's office. Unique in the history of the world, right? Our system gives states not just the power to pass laws, but also the power to enforce them. That is a powerful, powerful protector for our democracy, for our freedoms, for fairness in our marketplace, and that power is held in the Attorney General's office. So I'll talk a little bit about me, and then my vision for the office, and then very eager to answer your questions. I grew up just a couple of miles from where I live now with my daughters and my wife, who's a teacher. I moved away. I went to Harvard Law School and clerked for federal judges and saw from day one, how the law was rigged in favor of those with wealth and power. So I moved back home, and for more than a decade, I've been an attorney and the executive director of Towards Justice, a nonprofit legal organization that fights in court and in the legislature on behalf of working people against corporate abuse. I'm representing tens of thousands of Amazon drivers right now, Amazon delivery drivers, who are forced to urinate in bottles in order to stay on task for the profits of one of the wealthiest and most powerful companies in the history of the world. I'm fighting for meatpackers up in Greeley against JBS. I'm fighting for rideshare drivers, nurses, teachers, veterans. I'm representing a class of tens of thousands of renters across Colorado, renters, buried in junk fees, illegal and hidden junk fees, to the biggest corporate landlord in the country, Graystar. I'm fighting for hundreds of thousands of Coloradans drowning in medical debt. Does anyone here have medical debt? I've got medical debt. Drowning in medical debt to billion-dollar hospital systems in one of the wealthiest states, in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, It should not be possible. We've had some We have used the law boldly and courageously to take on some of the most important fights over the last several years against corporate power. I want to tell you a story about my client, Luis Bautista, who worked at Carl's Jr. Does anyone remember a guy named Andy Puzder? I don't blame you. I don't blame you. It's hard to keep track of all of these unsavory characters in the Trump saga. Andy Puzder was Donald Trump's nominee to be Secretary of Labor in 2017. And what qualified him to be Secretary of Labor was that he was the CEO of Carl's Jr. Right? And he used to run around saying, look, we don't need minimum wages to protect working people. All we need is a free market. Now, what you know, what I know, what my clients know, what the people I fight for know, is that the market is not free. It is rigged in favor of those with wealth and power. So sure enough, we looked at Andy Puzder's fine print, the fine print of the franchise agreements at Carl's Jr., and they had a term in them that prevented workers from moving between restaurants for jobs that would pay them more or treat them better, right? What kind of free market is that? My client, Luis Bautista, told me that he had worked at Carl's Jr. for many, many years, and he had not been to a parent-teacher conference. He had a daughter about my daughter's age. He had not been to a parent-teacher conference in many years, because every time he tried to schedule one, his boss would change his schedule around. And I remember that was heartbreaking for me because I love parent-teacher conferences. I cry at every parent-teacher conference because I'm so proud of my kids. I never know what the teachers think of that. He hadn't been to a parent-teacher conference in years. So we brought the first case in the country to challenge these kinds of fine print traps under the antitrust laws. And that case caused a sea change. As a consequence of that litigation, hundreds of thousands of workers were freed from these kinds of traps, and recent economic research suggests that the wages of fast food franchise workers in many places in the country have gone up by 6 to 7%, right? Because they had the freedom to move between jobs for ones that would actually pay them more. We've sued the Trump administration. We sued the Trump administration recently because the Trump administration did not pay TSA agents during the shutdown. You know who they did pay during the shutdown? ICE agents. You can't decide to pay, it's the same agency, DHS. You can't decide to pay the ICE agents, but not the TSA agents. We sued the Trump administration, and we've also sued the Polis administration. We sued the Polis administration recently, and we stopped Governor Polis from turning over information from the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment to ICE in service of Donald Trump and Stephen Miller's absurd immigration enforcement introduction. So we sued the Trump administration and we sued the Polis administration because, as I like to say, this fight isn't only about the fight between Democrats and Republicans. Very often, it's the fight about the many versus the money. We have recovered nearly $100 million stolen from working people and forced the biggest corporations in the country to follow the law. I'm running for Attorney General because right now, more than ever, in this office, we need experienced, bold, courageous, and sometimes even scrappy lawyering to save our country. What does that mean? So first, I think it is absolutely essential that we take on the scourge of Trumpism. That will require continuing to fight back against Donald Trump, continuing to sue him every step of the way when he violates our rights and harms Coloradans. That is necessary. I'll tell you, I don't think long-term it is going to be sufficient. Fundamentally, we're going to need to take on all of the forces, everybody who participates in the corruption and the cruelty of this project in violation of our laws. So what does that mean? As I've been saying for many, many months, what that means is, for example, if you're an ICE agent and you trample our rights in violation of state law, we're going to hold you accountable under state law. The Attorney General's office can do that, and we have to. It means that if you're, one of these billionaires who stood behind him at his inauguration, and the oligarchs taking over our country, you're trying to bribe this administration, pay millions to build this guy's ballroom in order to get your merger through, right? In order to get an investigation against you dismissed. You know what? You become a top enforcement priority of Colorado. Colorado can block that merger. Colorado can pick up the investigations that the administration has dropped against their corporate donors. Colorado can do that. We have to. The Attorney General's office can do that. Because we need to fundamentally shift. We need a shift in incentive structure in this country where doing his bidding seems to put you on the right side of the law. We need to make it perfectly clear. You do his bidding and you violate our rights, you become an enforcement priority for Colorado. We need to flip the script entirely. But I will also say, we need to be perfectly clear about something. It is not enough to take on Donald Trump and Trumpism. We also have to take on the conditions that gave rise to him, right? The things that brought us to where we are today. Fundamentally, that's an economy and a democracy where the top 1% seem to get away with everything, right? And the 99% get screwed, right? I want to tell you a brief story, which may sound like lots of these things that we experience all the time. My father last year, in 2024 actually, so 2024 in November, my father had a brain bleed, and he was in the hospital, and his salt levels were low, and the nurse was giving him salt pills, and he couldn't keep them down. He was throwing up. And I asked her why she couldn't give him saline solution, right? So he wouldn't have to keep the pills down. And I remember she looked like she was going to cry. And I should say, as an aside, if we want to fight for a healthcare system that puts people over profits, we have to fight for power and voice for healthcare workers. We have to. So she said, we don't have any saline solution to give him. Right here at Anschutz, they didn't have any saline solution to give him. Does anyone remember what happened last year, November 2024, in Asheville, North Carolina? Flooding. Floods in Asheville, North Carolina had damaged the manufacturing facility for Baxter, one of the biggest saline solution monopolists in the country. Now, okay, so what? You know what? Baxter can't sell you saline. It's salt and water. Buy it from somewhere else. My dad's throwing up. It turns out that some private equity-owned corporate middleman you had never heard of had a contract with the hospital that effectively prevented it from buying saline from anyone except for Baxter. So as a consequence of the absurd greed of this private equity billionaire somewhere, my father was throwing up in the hospital. We do not need to be living this way. None of this is inevitable. We can fight back. And key to fighting back will be enforcing the law boldly and courageously. The Attorney General's office can do that. The Attorney General's office, right, can take on the fine print. The Attorney General can go after the private equity firms that are swallowing up our housing, our healthcare, the most important things. The Attorney General's office can make polluters pay. The Attorney General's office can hold big tech accountable for developing the systems that are jacking up our prices, driving down our wages, that are manipulating my kids' minds. They're building these data centers right now and jacking up our utility rates, stealing our water. As I like to say, they are boiling the planet to build the robots that are going to decide whether or not my mom can get health care. We can take all of that on. The Attorney General can take all of that on. The Attorney General's office can break up the monopolies, can crack down on the oligarchs that have seized our country and stolen the American dream from us. we can fight for a better future. As Attorney General, I'll fight for the basic things, fundamental things, the right to an abortion, the right to a union, the right to clean air, clean water, all the things that are absolutely essential to our opportunity to live a life of our choosing. As Attorney General, I'll fight for a world where everyone who lives in Colorado can't only afford the basics, like housing and healthcare, but can afford to thrive here, and go on a freaking vacation every once in a while. You know what I mean? So I would appreciate so much your support for this campaign. I want to close out by telling you a little bit about my logo, because it's one of my favorite things on this campaign. I designed it with my daughters. One of the consultants really wanted to put a mountain in it. And I was like, no mountain, we have this idea, my daughters have this idea, it's going to be a sun. And the consultant said, well, if you don't put a mountain in it, people are going to think you hate mountains. So I promised them, no one's going to think I hate mountains. I love mountains. It's meant to reflect my favorite piece of Jewish scripture from Isaiah. We read it every year on Yom Kippur. Isaiah says, if you clothe the naked, if you feed the hungry, if you break off the yoke of oppression, then your light shall burst forth like the dawn. And what I love about that imagery is it's a reminder that there is room for light in the darkness, and we will find it. We will find it. But we are going to be the source of the light, right? It's not going to be some external force. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. We stand shoulder to shoulder. We can fight back, and we can build a brighter future. So thank you all. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Questions? Well, I'm not sure what questions you heard, so I'll just.
I'll tell you. I heard the question about the Montana plan. I heard Tabor question, and I heard a question about how to find Heddle. Meaning, how to contact her.
What do you think distinguishes you from the other candidates?
I think that my experience in the trenches for many, many years, taking on the biggest legal fights, standing up in courtrooms around the country, fighting on behalf of working people, standing up for them, gives me not only the experience, the lawyering experience, the experience of a scrappy, bold, visionary lawyering, but also the experience representing human beings who have been screwed. I know where the bodies are buried in a legal system that is rigged against working people. I know what it's like, to sit there on the 20th floor of a law firm on 17th Street, representing a client in tears, being berated by a corporate lawyer when she's accused her boss of sexual harassment. Those kinds of experiences, I think now more than ever, we need in these critically important offices that are going to be core to the fight against corruption in corporate use.
How many lawyers are in the Attorney General's office?
I believe there are over 200. How
many lawyers have you managed in your career?
Directly, I have managed at Towards Justice. We have somewhere between 10 and 20. And that's shifted over time. I have managed, in lawyers in more mid-level management roles at other organizations. On the cases that we litigate with law firms from around the country who have managed teams of much bigger lawyers on those cases.
Okay. Any comments about ICE, either how you could, what the Attorney General's office might do to keep ICE out of our communities or keep track of what they're doing? Any thoughts on ICE?
Yeah, and I answered some of this, but the other day we also put out an announcement of my intention to create an ICE accountability unit. I think it is absolutely essential that we hold ICE accountable. What that does mean, is it will mean investigating and holding accountable individual ICE officers when they trample our rights. It will also mean holding accountable the private contractors, like the GEO Group, the company that owns the private immigration detention facility here in Aurora. Right now, I'm litigating a class action on behalf of tens of thousands of former detainees at the immigration detention facility who allege that company out-of-state billion-dollar company, forced them to work, forced them to clean the facility, maintain the facility under the threat of solitary confinement. The biggest, wealthiest corporation in Colorado, Palantir, right, has profited tremendously off of developing one of the biggest AI surveillance systems in the history of the world. We need to make it clear, not just to ICE agents, but to all of them too, everyone profiting off this outrageous, out of detention camps and this outrageous immigration enforcement industrial complex, that if you violate Colorado law, you're going to be held accountable under Colorado law. But I'll tell you, it's not just that. This problem is so pervasive all the time right now. And I think this sort of speaks to the experience that I bring to the office. All the time right now, I am talking to working people across this state, our clients, people who call my organization, who are terrified. There are people right now in Colorado who are having conversations with their kids about what happens when their kids come home from school and they aren't there anymore because they've been kidnapped, right? We just got a call a couple of months ago from a worker who said that her boss said that if she asked for her paycheck one more time, she'd get a bullet in the head and a call to ICE. So fundamental to this project is also fighting back against all of the bullies across our society right now who are profiting off of the culture of fear that this White House has created.
Any other questions for David? Go ahead.
I don't know what the office deals with this, but it's almost impossible for me to get a higher education to get a higher school, and I think that may have something to do with it.
We need you to speak up. This is getting recorded.
Oh,
I can.
I don't know if this is something that the Attorney General's office deals with, but it's almost impossible to get a higher education today, even in a state school. And I just, it might be the case or it might not be the case, but I think that might have something to do with Donald Trump giving it back to the street.
Thank you. Great question.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the question was, and I'm sorry, what's your name? Zach. So Zach asks, it's almost impossible, relative to when you went to school, almost impossible for many people to get a higher education in this country. And in Zach's words, this is maybe what's contributed to the rise of Trumpism. And what can the Attorney General's office do to take all of this on? I think that you are, first of all, the premise is absolutely right. This is a massively serious problem, and there are some tools within the Attorney General's office directly, and and also, as I like to say, you're not just electing a lawyer, you're electing a leader too, right? Who will use the bully pulpit of this office to speak out about these issues. So one thing, when it comes to Colorado, for example, is we got to repeal Tabor, right? We have to take on a rigged tax system where billionaires and corporations pay the same tax rate as you and me, right? Which is one of the reasons why it's so hard to get so many things in Colorado, including an affordable higher education. I've spoken out about Tabor repeatedly, signed on to the progressive income tax ballot measure, support your very fine Representative Camacho's efforts in the legislature as well. We also need to take on, and this is something I've sued the for-profit schools that scam people, and we're seeing a resurgence of those. It's a very serious problem. That's something I've done throughout my career. And also I've fought back against student loan servicers and and others that have made it impossible for student loan borrowers to make ends meet. So there are lots of tools in the Attorney General's office directly to take on a rigged higher education system. Now, when it comes to how this has given rise to Trumpism, I think there are a lot of factors here. Part of those factors, I'll say, also include, and I feel this deeply in my bones, is the Democratic Party has not done enough to fight for working people. Fundamentally, I think we also need new voices in Democratic Party politics.
A couple of more quick questions from the floor because we want to give our third person time.
This is a big question, and every town police have asked a lawyer. It's exhibit, so two lawyers. And it's in the future, you're talking about the oligarchs who stood behind Trump. And the one that stands out to me is Elon Musk. He's the wealthiest man in the world, $700 billion. In the future, when politics change a little bit, or maybe you coming in and helping us, is there a way for the United States citizens to do a class action lawsuit against Elon Musk and his Doge team as they stole our personal information and all that information that they stole? What I'm talking about, when you talk about insurance companies with deep pockets going after him, he is the number one team in the world of the worst oligarchs who did the most damage. He has to be responsible. Is there any way in the future there could be a class action lawsuit to represent us for the information being stolen?
Thanks for the question. Sorry, what's your name?
I'm sorry?
What is your name?
Dan.
Dan, thanks for the question. The question is about Elon Musk and Doge, and in particular, Elon Musk and Doge's pillaging of our information within the United States government, and whether there's any mechanism to hold him accountable for all the ways in which he may be profiting off of this information. There actually already is private litigation under the Privacy Act against related to Doge's efforts. I'll say that litigation is going to be challenging for a bunch of technical reasons that it's not really worth getting into. I do think that there will be, I hope, lots of opportunities to hold these folks accountable for this kind of conduct, and the Attorney General's office may lead the way in some of those, may need to lead the way in some of those. So, for example, I am very concerned about the way how they have stolen our private information to help build and help to inform the AI systems, help teach AI systems that then rig the economy against us, right? So the AI systems that they're feeding this information into are often many of the same AI systems that they use to set individualized prices, right? To charge us as much as possible or pay us as little as possible. If that is happening, I think that raises some very serious legal concerns. And then it's not only about stealing our information, it's also about explicitly dismantling the parts of government that are there to regulate them. So one of Donald Trump's top priorities when he got into office was dismantling the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. By the way, that one of the cases that we brought early on against the administration was suing on behalf of CFPB employees who lost their jobs. So the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, protects us from the scams and the big banks and the fraudsters and all of those things. You know what they also protect us from? They also protect us from digital wallets, right? Digital wallets, which increasingly people use to pay for stuff, online. Elon Musk has announced the intent to create X Money, one of the most powerful digital wallet platforms in the world. Wonder why he prioritized the dismantling of the CFPB.
So
I appreciate all of you so much. Thank you so much.